This country has not passed a real infrastructure bill in over half a century. Not one designed to endure. Not one grounded in first principles. Not one that reestablishes the basic covenant between a society and its people. That the tools of civilization exist to uplift, not to extract, not manage, not restrain, but to elevate life itself. We've had spending packages, budget reshuffles, superficial repairs, but the structural arteries, the systems upon which human dignity depends, have been allowed to decay while corporate parasites siphon value and call it growth. What follows is not utopian theory. It is a practical blueprint, one that uses the residual strength of the federal state not to reassert authority, but to build the scaffolding for its own obsolescence. This is infrastructure designed with a terminal function. A society that matures past dependence on centralized power must first create the conditions that make that possible. That's what this bill is. A launchpad for sovereignty. An investment not in government control, but in individual flourishing. Every dollar spent must build systems that require fewer dollars tomorrow. Not because they're cut, but because they are no longer needed. We begin where all civilization begins, with shelter. Not speculative housing markets, not rent-back securities. Shelter as a civil right, because there is no freedom, no meaningful participation in society without the guarantee of a safe place to live. We already possess the capacity to fabricate climate-adaptive, energy-efficient, structurally sound homes through automated processes and regionally distributed 3D printing hubs. This is not future tech. It is current, proven, and grossly underutilized. With industrial-scale coordination, a livable two-bedroom home can be built for between $30,000 and $50,000. Federal procurement of essential materials, cement, hempcrete, recycled composite blends, drive this cost further down. At a conservative estimate of $40,000 per unit, housing 20 million Americans would cost $800 billion. Site prep, labor training through public universities, weatherization refits, and regional hub development adds another $200 billion. $1 trillion over 10 years would not just provide homes, it would end homelessness. It would eliminate housing insecurity. It would remove shelter from the logic of profit. That alone reshapes the economic landscape. Home becomes foundation, not leverage. Next comes transport, because without the means to move, people remain trapped in localized stagnation. This is not about prestige, high-speed rail for photo ops. It's about public, electrified, resilient mobility. 10 interregional high-speed rail lines connecting economic corridors. 20 fully built-out urban rail and tram networks. Publicly owned freight infrastructure optimized for agricultural supply, medical delivery, and regional manufacturing. No private tolling, no subcontracting, no rent-seeking embedded into a central movement. Estimated cost, $1.8 trillion over 10 years. That's $180 billion annually. And it builds independence, not dependence on oil markets or logistics conglomerates, but functional, durable movement designed to serve the public directly. This is infrastructure as civic muscle. With proper planning, this network reduces emissions, improves disaster resilience, and restores geographic equity. Then we modernize the grid. The current energy system is not just inefficient, it is lethal in times of climate stress and deliberately monopolized to keep people paying for vulnerability. We require a full-scale energy revolution, decentralized, resilient, renewable, dominant, and backed by high-density storage. Solar fields on federal land, wind farms across the plains, geothermal integrated at the community level. But we go further. By incorporating modern nuclear energy, including small modular reactors where appropriate, nuclear provides consistent baseload power, and its inclusion eliminates any need for fossil backup. The vision is not national control forever. It is phased decentralization. Every home built should be wired to eventually run independently. Every region should have the capacity to manage its own generation and storage. We fund grid modernization, deploy generation where geography allows, and install backup systems to protect life first, not profit. Total cost, 2.1 trillion over 10 years, roughly 1 trillion for renewable and nuclear generation, 600 billion for national transmission and smart grid modernization, 300 billion for battery and hydrogen storage, and 200 billion for localized microgrid deployments. What we build here isn't just resilience, it's autonomy, power without dependency. Now, water and waste, the forgotten lifeblood of every society. America still pumps water through lead pipes. Its waste systems leak, collapse, and contaminate. Markets will not fix what doesn't return profit. But a government rooted in enlightenment duty must. Every lead line in the country must be torn out and replaced. Public buildings must be fitted with decentralized purification systems. New homes must integrate gray water reuse by design, not as an upgrade. Waste must be separated, composted, and recycled through mechanized systems built for scale, not margin. This is not complicated. It's simply not lucrative for private haulers. Estimated costs, $400 billion. That includes $150 billion for national pipe and sewer retrofits, $100 billion for decentralized water systems, $50 billion for gray water standards enforcement and retrofit incentives, and $100 billion for municipal mechanization of waste sorting and composting. What results is not just sanitation, it's biospheric integrity. A society that treats its water cycle as sacred does not collapse. So here's the number. Total investment, 6.3 to 7 trillion over a decade. That's 630 to 700 billion per year. Less than annual military expenditures, less than corporate tax evasion. And unlike those, this investment doesn't vanish. It becomes structure. It becomes soil. It becomes the bones of a society built to last. These are not sunk costs. These are civilizational assets. And most critically, they're designed from the start to decentralize as they mature. Because this is not about rebuilding for permanence. It's about rebuilding for release. The state acts now because it must, but it acts with a terminal purpose. It is not here to rule. It is here to restore, to erect the foundations of a world where centralized governance is no longer necessary for survival, where human beings can flourish without permission, where sovereignty is not a theory, but a lived reality, rooted in physical systems that guarantee life without extraction. This is enlightenment work, not an aesthetics in principle, reason over superstition, public good over private tyranny. The purpose of government is not continuity, it is utility. When the house is built, the scaffolding comes down. We do not contract out our future. We do not rent out our dignity. We do not drive over broken roads while hedge funds trade water rights. We build, and we build because liberty demands it.